Thank you so much, Julian. And I'm gonna switch to Spanish since I know there are a lot of Spanish speakers, and for those that are not, just switch to the English channel. So yeah, thank you so much, Julian, for the introduction. My name is Monica Mata.
Oh, Moni, I think you might have gone on mute. Sorry.
Hi, Moni. I think we can't hear you at the moment because you went on mute all of a sudden. Sorry.
Una disculpa. Listo.
Apologies for that. Okay, ready. Yeah, these are the little issues with technology, regardless of how long we've been in the pandemic, it still happens. But okay, as I was saying, I'm actually very glad, very pleased to welcome you all. As Julian was saying, I am Monica Mata. I am program manager for Latin America. And today we are here to talk a little bit about this project that we've been implementing since January of this year. Well, thanks to the support of the German government through the International Climate Initiative, better known as ICI. And well, as many of you, and I'm sure you know it, this project was born from the Under 2 Coalition. And for those who don't know, the Under 2 Coalition is the organization that gathers different states and regions from all over the world. And actually, this is the largest worldwide. And we aim that for all the member states to have a high climate vision so that we are all aligned with the Paris Agreement. Now, this project was born from our coalition, or climate footprint project, which we are implemented in different states in 5 countries, the countries you can see on your screen. And well, through this project, what we try to do is generate technical capacities on monitoring, reporting, and verification of emissions. That's why it's called climate footprint. And well, what are we looking for? What do we want through these forums? We want to inspire participants to implement projects that are similar or that generate more knowledge that is being developed already in this state. So as Climate Group in these projects, we are actually leading this project. However, we couldn't implement this without the support of our technical advisors. So we have Ricardo, NGI Environment. They are the technical leaders in these 5 countries. However, in each of these countries, we also have technical partners. We also have the support of JPEX. They are facilitating the peer learning processes. So thank you to both of our partners. Well, these projects, unlike, I guess, many of the other projects you were involved, unlike the first phase, in this second phase, what we decided to do is identify which were the greatest needs of all the states that were going to take part in this project. Even though, as the name of the project states, these projects tries to better and improve the MRV capacities. And we identified that there are more issues with more support or different support is needed. And some of the issues was climate financing, adaptation, vertical integration, and this is something that we are trying to highlight in this webinar and specify better, well, not just in this webinar, of course, but in the entire series of webinars we're going to have for this learning process. Can we please switch to the next slide? All right. Because I don't want to bore you speaking too much, just to give you a brief panorama of the main goals of our project, we have 3 main goals. First, like I was saying, generating technical capacities to reduce and monitor emissions. Secondly, we want to align ourselves with all national policies and subnational policies. And in today's webinar, we're going to clearly see this in the example of Sonora and our municipalities in Hermosillo. And finally, we want to share all the learnings through our entire coalition and its members. This was just a brief summary, really. In the next slide, I will leave you with the Farial's contact. Farial is the manager for this project, and she can be able to resolve any doubt you may have on the projects. Please do not hesitate to write. I'll give you the floor now.
Now I'm on mute. So thank you very much, Moni, for this warm welcome and the introduction to the project that we're working with, the Climate Footprint Project. As Moni said, this peer forum, this webinar is really designed to inspire participants, inspire you to explore different opportunities for engaging stakeholders in the design and also the implementation of climate actions when developing inventories and MRV strategies. And today we'll look especially at the stakeholder relationships between different levels of government, so the national level, the state and regional level, and also the municipal level. And it's an opportunity to hear about different experiences and approaches of the regional government of Sonora from Mexico, engaging different municipal actors. We've also got the state of Hermosillo here, which is a municipality in Sonora that we'll hear from. We'll hope to gain insights and some practical ideas for how to engage stakeholders in the design and the implementation of climate actions. And hopefully this is also an opportunity to really identify what might be the potential first step or an action that you can take on stakeholder engagement. Now, today's peer forum, we've got a few different people that you'll be hearing from. My name is Julianne Neer, and I'll be your facilitator for today. We've already heard from Monica from the climate group. We have 3 speakers joining us today for a little input session. We will be hearing from Diana Durazo, who's the Director General of Climate Change and Environmental Culture at the Commission of Ecology and Sustainable Development at the State Government of Sonora. We have Carla Neudert, who's the General Director at the Municipal Agency for Energy and Climate Change at the Municipality of Hermosillo. And we have with us as well Valeria Correa, who's a Senior Manager for Latin America at the Climate Group and the Ande 2 Coalition. Now, we're proposing to spend a bit of time together. We're doing the welcome and the check-in just now. We'll then turn to our 3 speakers and hear a little bit from their insights and experiences around how to engage different stakeholders. And we'll then give you the opportunity to actually have a conversation with one another. We will be hosting small breakout group discussions where you can share a bit of your experience and what's worked in your context. And then we're having a checkout and a feedback, and this is how we're proposing to spend our 90 minutes together. Now, I think there's been a lot of talking, and I'm really keen to understand and hear who is actually in the room. So I'm going to ask you to please write in the chat, and some of you have already started, which is great. What is your name? What's where are you calling from, the state or the region or the country? And what are you hoping to learn on stakeholder engagement from multiple levels of government? So I can see that we've got Pedro here from Chiapas. Fantastic, welcome Pedro. And we also have, I can see that there's quite a few colleagues from Mexico calling. Welcome Claudia and Ana from Yucatan. It's great. We also have a colleague from Colombia and Deepanjana from West Bengal. Oh, it must be very late for you. So thank you for joining so late, Deepanjana. And Fernando from Argentina joining. We've got Lise from the Western Cape government, really wanting to understand, so they need to work across all government levels in order to get cooperation around climate change. How do we best do this? It's not always easy. I can see that we have Walter from the region Madre de Dios, and also colleagues from Colombia. And I think we also have Lamine joining from the Gambia, really hoping to learn some new information, some new best practices. So yeah, hopefully we can share a little bit with one another what's working, what's not working, and how what you can take away to your own context. From Jodie from the Western Cape, we're really wanting to understand, to learn more best practices to facilitate better buy-in from different levels of government. Great. Well, hopefully we'll get a little bit of a glimpse and an opportunity to hear from Sonora and from Hermosillo, the state and the municipality, and then also have the opportunity to have a conversation about this. With that, welcome everybody with that. And I'm going to turn to our speakers. So I'm really excited that we have our three speakers here with you. I'm just going to briefly introduce them before we start having a bit of a conversation around a few questions. So Diana Durazo is the Director General of Climate Change, Environmental Culture at the Commission of Ecology and Sustainable Development at the State Government of Sonora. And Diana has a background in public and private sector. She has previously worked as the Deputy Director of Services and Strengthening Programs of the Unit for Coordination and Social Participation and Transparency in the Secretariat of Environment and National Resources at the federal level of Mexico. She holds a master's degree in construction project management. And yeah, we're really delighted to have her here with us today, and the state of Sonora, with us today. We are also talking, we also have with us Carla Neudert, who's the General Director at the Municipal Agency for Energy and Climate Change at the Municipality of Hermosillo. And Carla has a broad or a wide career in the academic sector, but also in the public and private sector. As part of her academic career, Carla was lecturing in law in different universities in the United States of America, and also as a guest lecturer in Spain and Germany. In the private sector, she's been an advisor on renewable energy projects, both around wind and solar energy, as well as innovation and energy efficiency projects with a social approach. And in the public sector, she has worked in different positions for the state government of Sonora. I'm very happy to hear that Carla is originally from Hermosillo. So it's great to have someone who comes from there. And Carla has graduated in law, and she holds a master's in education and is currently undergoing a doctorate in public administration. We also have with us another woman, Valeria Correa. Valeria is a senior manager for Latin America at the Under 2 Coalition at the Climate Group. At the Climate Group, she manages projects and provides strategic oversight on the portfolio of projects in Latin America. So that covers countries Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, and Peru, and focuses on decarbonization pathways, implementation of actions in the AFOLU sector, as well as monitoring, reporting, and verification systems. Valeria has previously worked for UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme in Ecuador and Honduras, managing RED+ projects, and she holds a master's degree in international development and in Latin American studies. So I'm very pleased to have all three of you with me here today, so thank you very much for making the time. I'm going to stop the presentation now so that you can just see all our faces of the speakers, and we can just see each other. So I'm gonna start with you, Diana. I wanted to kick off the conversation with you and just hear a little bit. The state of Sonora is currently working with the Under 2 Coalition to receive tools and training for updating your GHG emissions inventory. So I was wondering, what do you expect the role of the different levels of government to be? You know, might it be at the national level or also at the municipal level in the process of updating your inventory? And how do you think you've benefited from engaging these different levels of government?
Thank you, Julian. And thank you, the Climate Group, for organizing this event and for the invite. Now, about the question, that you gave me. As we have seen, when updating the inventory is great, part of this information is something we don't have in the state of Sonora. So we need to support one another. We need to support on the federal inventory and the national inventory to be able to kind of extract the necessary data and be able to have whether an overlap or just extrapolate some data and be able to have an updated inventory based on those data. Likewise, the same effort needs to be done by the municipality. Perhaps it might be easier that each municipality in the Sonora state has its own emission, GHG inventory to be able to then put together these 72 municipalities in the case of Sonora and then have our own state inventory. So we have had other projects where we have managed to collaborate and have all the governments collaborate, municipality, state level, which makes us very proud. And we believe that that inventory could be a great opportunity, which is something we're aiming. We really want to develop the inventory together with the 3 levels of government. Thank you.
Great, that's interesting to hear, and I'm going to turn to Carla next, just to hear a little bit from your experience as well. Carla, you do have a close working relationship with the state of Sonora. I think it's been developing quite strongly, and I was just wondering if you can tell us a little bit more from your experience. How did that relationship between the state of Sonora and the municipality of Hermosillo, how did that come about, and what did it enable you to do? What are some of the benefits that you're seeing from engaging these different levels of government?
Hi, good morning. Well, thank you very much, first of all, for the space, for this invitation. And well, at points, we don't know what we're doing, what each level of government is doing. We don't have that transversal communication. So that's, I believe, is the main challenge for all municipalities. Finally, we may want to boost projects or promote projects that perhaps have been implemented by other municipalities, other states, and we just don't know about that. So I believe that's basic, really, to be aware, to know which efforts, which projects are being promoted by the state and how can we replicate them from our places, so to speak. And on the other side, give me a second, please. All right. And on the other hand, well, this is sort of an anecdote. Some years ago, I was also working in the state government, precisely in the position where Diana Karina is right now. And so somehow we know the work that is being developed from the level of state and the opportunities that we have to collaborate from the local point of view. In the end, the state government is an agency that requires all municipalities help to be able to develop all the projects on the site. And the municipality requires or needs the help of the state to be able to manage all these, do all these, and have the resources to promote these projects.
That's great. Thank you, Carla. And interesting to hear, of course, that you do have that experience on having sat on the different sides, and having experienced that relationship also from different perspectives. I wanted to turn to you, Valeria, and hear a little bit more. As part of the Under2 Coalition, you work with states and regions mainly, but vertical integration and how to work across different levels of government and stakeholder engagement is a really big topic and an important theme. The Under2 Coalition really supports ambitious and regional governments committed to decarbonizing their economy and achieving their goals as part of the Paris Agreement. And one of the frameworks or the tools that has been developed by the Under2 Coalition is the Pathways Framework, which is a flexible and tailored approach that supports the achievement of net zero emissions and promotes intra-governmental and stakeholder collaboration. Now, I was wondering, stakeholder engagement really is a really underpins this framework, but why is it such an integral part, and why is it so integrated in the framework? And how have you seen different experiences or states or regions using the framework to really help their thinking and their actions around stakeholder engagement?
Gracias, Juliani. Un saludo para Diana.
Thank you for that, Juliani. Hi, Juliani, Carla, who are with me today. It's a pleasure to share this panel with you. Yes, actually, stakeholder participation is quite important because actually all climate change actions that will be developed with any type of public policy are not only going to be implemented by the state government. Municipalities need to be involved, not only municipalities, we're talking about other stakeholders involved, whether they are private sector, civil society. So I believe that for any public policy, and talking about pathways in this case, to make it successful, we need that the design of each of them includes a participatory mechanism which is quite extensive, quite broad, so that all stakeholders that may be affected by this public policy or that actually are the ones that may be implementing this policy understand the impact this may have and can also talk about their needs, express them, explain them, and then also talk about the level of effort they can actually use for this public policy. In the end, it's sort of an acceptance of actions. If the public policy is not developed with participation of stakeholders, then you may run the risk of not having this accepted from a public point of view, and this will impact implementation. Now, the decarbonization pathways, which is a tool that we developed in the climate group, is something that we are actually included the participation as a comprehensive part, very integral, because doing a decarbonization pathway up to 2050 requires a profound transformation, and which will require all sectors to agree on how to do it. And for that, again, we need participation, right? We need involvement, and that needs to start from the beginning. We cannot develop a pathway, a public policy, without them taking part in the planning stage, which will create greater acceptance. And this will also include the vision of the different stakeholders. So we have seen that many states have actually used the tool, have implemented several participatory mechanisms, and have used these platforms or platforms that they already had in their states and regions to manage to really get actual involvement from all stakeholders and make it really participatory, not just making it formal, but there's actual participation, and the opinion of different stakeholders is actually taken into consideration. Like what you were saying, this vertical integration that is sometimes very difficult is also very important, and we need to promote that to continue happening when we're talking about public policies.
Great, thank you, Valeria. Interesting that you mentioned the different, I guess, the different stages of developing public policy, because you do have the planning stage, but you also have the implementation. I'm sure there's many other stages as well, but I guess stakeholder engagement does play a role in each of those different stages. So not just to think about it at the implementation or towards the end. I know, some people asked earlier, like, what are the tips and the tricks? And so I wanted to ask you, what are some of the practical tips and tricks that you would give states or regions that really want to strengthen their engagement, or that build their relationships with different governmental stakeholders? Maybe what are some of the questions they should be thinking about?
Sí, Julián. Creo que realmente la recomendación.
Yes, Julian, I believe that the recommendation on the one side is to establish mechanisms to get formal and informal stakeholders involved, right? Because in the formal arenas, we may have some rules, like many states have done, say, develop a forum of climate change or intersectoral groups of climate change, which works because there's a follow-up. And you manage to develop an intersector relationship among different levels of the government or different agencies of the same government. However, I also believe it's important to use other informal participatory mechanisms. And I mean to involve get other actors involved. For instance, if we need to develop a public policy that needs to do a consultation, now we have so many virtual tools where we can use, I don't know, virtual surveys, or maybe in Latin America, we really use WhatsApp. It's kind of a way to ask different people or provide information. So I believe that these sort of informal mechanisms are also valid, and I do believe it's quite important to use them. I guess for me, my first advice or tip, or the most important one, would be to do a very good mapping of actors or stakeholders. Of course, this is not just about creating lists. Really explain why and what is it I need to involve this or that actor for, and also determine how you're going to do it. Some of them you will empower, some others you will just get involved, and others are you're just going to inform. So if you sort of create these categories of stakeholders, you can also develop a stronger strategy to get them involved, and more to the point of what each of these actors can do, depending on their influence and importance regarding the public policy you want to develop. And I guess the last tip I would provide is always considering social inclusion and gender issues. I do believe that today is quite important to consider that all these different stakeholders may participate in that, but for them to be actively involved, we need to have clear conditions. For instance, considering languages, if you're talking with indigenous groups that do not speak the main language, or maybe schedule the hour, the time of the meetings, right? And to allow people to participate in these meetings. So I think that we sometimes forget that, but they are also important to be considered.
Fantastic. Thank you, Valeria. I could see a lot of people kind of looking down and maybe taking some notes. I definitely was taking notes. So thank you so much for sharing those tips and tricks. I think there are some really useful ones, and I like the differentiation between formal and informal. But I wanted to turn back to you, Carla, and just understand a little bit more. I think at a municipal level, especially when we're talking about implementation of climate actions, and the municipal level really is key is a key driver in strengthening local resilience to climate change, but also contributing to the really long-term global response around climate change and protecting people and livelihoods and the ecosystem. So in the case of Hermosillo, I was wondering, how is the municipality of Hermosillo driving climate actions at the moment? What's the potential that you see for relationships and engagement with the state or also with the national level?
Pues mira, de entrada, yo creo que...
Well, I guess to start, something very important that I believe we need to always consider and remember is the level of commitment and involvement with the authority or the leaders we've got. In this case, the municipality leadership, actually, we've been very lucky in the sense that they are closely linked to the state leaders. So the governor of the state and the governor of the municipality have an excellent relationship, but also they agree on various things, actually many things, and especially in everything related to environment, climate change, renewable energies, and so on. I'm sorry, my throat is a bit sore, so that's why I sound weird. So coming from there, I believe that the relationship between the different levels of government, it's fundamental, really. But also, through the municipal government, we are developing actions that are aimed at different sectors or centered in different sectors. For instance, we talked about safety in the municipality agency of climate change. We're talking about public lighting, and the other one is renewable energy. So with regard to renewable energy, our goal is basically to measure contributions, measure the impact of the actions of the municipality, because we also have an area which is ecology, for instance, where they do take more actions. So our approach is more, trying to look into these public policies and measure their impact, whether they are executed or implemented in different areas. And with regard to public lighting, we are informing a lot. On the one hand, we have a project that we are about to start, which is about energy consortiums as planned users within the water agency. So we are undergoing that process now. And the condition is to buy energy in a photovoltaic plant, clean energy, renewable energy, local clean energy. And on the other side, for lightning, we are working with a self-serving modality. We have a legal contract, we are part of it, and here we are partnered with a company, with a photovoltaic company. So around 40% of our energy consumption is going to be clean. At the same time, we have different generation projects distributed both for public buildings as well as for the public lighting. And we have other projects that are quite interesting, where, well, beyond the economic advantages, like electric patrols that are already working in Hermosillo, we have the largest fleet of electrical patrols in the world, 220. They're all working. Just to give you an example, you say, okay, how expensive could be to implement a project like this, right? But then we look at the other side, everything you're not spending in gas, or everything you're saving in environmental impact, theft, corruption, when they steal the parts of the vehicle. So we have sort of a small mission. We're going to keep being small, but we have a huge vision, and we're not afraid of going out and exploring. So I believe it's just about transforming things. So in that sense, when we see that something might be too expensive or that looks like too far away, so then we develop pilot projects. Or the project we have solar home. So we bring projects that are focused on installing these solar panels for houses, and beyond the cost and the cost benefit, all the financial part, we have the impact of the first household where we installed. We're talking about a very young couple, 25 years old, more or less, and they were so happy, and all the neighbors around them were asking them, what's that? How does it work? What's it panel for? Which were the benefits they had? They wanted to be, everyone wanted to know the first invoice, what's the saving, and all of that. So everyone installed all that around their own house, because everyone just was looking at that. They learned what that worked, how it worked. So that creates or allows us to have a larger vision, which is what's really helping us to generate a different culture, different interest.
Yeah.
So these are just some of the actions that we take as a municipal government, and the ones that we are developing now.
Fantastic. Carla, thank you for sharing. I can really hear that there's a breadth, and I'm sure if we had more time, you probably could have gone on with more examples, which, I think just shows you the strength as well. And I guess the point that I'm remembered is the point that Valeria was making also around the impact, understanding what's the impact of all of these projects, and feeding them back, not just at a municipal level, but also at a state level, to understand how does that data get reflected in your inventory. Diana, I'm going to come to you, and I wanted to ask, just from your experience when you're engaging with national and municipal level stakeholders, and when it's going really well, so a really good example, what is it that's happening? What do you experience? What do you see? What do you hear? And maybe you have even a particular example that you want to share that you're really proud of, that's worked really well.
Well, thank you for that question, Julian. Well, first of all, I believe it's very important to highlight the good that has come out of this relationship and this collaboration between the three levels of government. But I would also like to say the awkward, just mention the awkward, the weird part. It's quite a challenge to reach, to contact, and to create a common ground between the three levels of government. Sometimes the communication, nobody answers the emails, it's kind of stopped, nobody answers the calls. So it's quite complicated, particularly with regards to climate change. One of the main challenges is to have a cross relationship with all the levels of government and all vulnerable groups, which may be the main ones, that we need to work with. And also, we'll be able to actually overcome some of these challenges, and we've been able to develop some of these projects. And one of the main, I guess, that I would like to mention is the State Government of Climate Change of the Sonora State. This program was published in June, the beginning of June, and we had to follow a process that the law states that we need to follow. And there's also the variation of our federal homologue, and this sort of validation of the process provides some ease and tranquility, because it sort of validates this instrument to create public policies in our state, and is backed up by the federal state. So I even had the chance to share these with other NGOs and transnational companies that also validated it and sort of support these, and you kind of feel you're doing the right thing, right, to benefit the environment. And another example I would like to highlight is the challenge of efficient buildings in Sonora State, where we are working together with the federal government. And I believe this is very related with the home project that Carla just mentioned, because we are looking to train and provide feedback on the energy efficient systems. So together with the collaboration of the federal government, we've been able to do these trainings both for the industry as well as for the state and municipal governments. And we want to achieve a greater energetic efficiency that when, based on the buildings, of course, that we see in the inventory, we see that have the greatest or the largest GHG emissions. So if we were able to lock in the 3 levels of government, I know we would be able to achieve more. However, it's important to note that there are many challenges, that it's important to work together and, well, day by day. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, and thanks for focusing on 1 or 2 of the projects that have worked well, and really nice to hear that you have that really positive example. And I did want to, I know that, I think probably we all in this room know that from our experience, stakeholder engagement is not always easy. It's so easy to say the words, but actually doing it can be quite hard. And sometimes you really hit a wall and there is no response, as you said. And I was wondering, again, from your experience, what do you do in those times when you have these challenges? What advice would you give to another state or another region that maybe is a bit stuck in their stakeholder engagement or in their relationship building, either with a national or with a municipal level? What should they do?
Well, first of all, I believe we have to be very patient, and we have to be very tolerant as well. Also, Carla also said that we not necessarily have the same priorities, right? So there are issues that take a lot of time that might not be an urgent priority for me, but maybe for the federal government it is, or the other way around. So we need to be very patient. And what has provided us with the best result is extreme communication. So continuous communication, sending follow-up emails, submit if we have the direct contact, just give them a phone call. That's what we've been able to see provides us some good results. And of course, create interpersonal relationships. I think it's just much easier for me to go in person, directly talk with the person in the municipal government, explain my concern about the project, instead of submitting a simple letter or email. That, just being there and talking physically to the person may allow you to express things better. And this is, it's important. At the level of federal government, it's important to see which projects may we have in common, which are our common priorities. And even though it might be more difficult to, try to converse this way with the federal government, we need to try and find the stakeholders that may have this conversation, maybe use the relationships that we could take advantage of. For instance, in the case of Sonora, we know that the governor and the president of the country have a very close relationship. So try to look for support for our projects that way. But like I was saying in the previous question, it is a challenge. And this is a challenge that we will find on a day-to-day basis. And we're always just trying to look for best practices and best ways to really maintain the communication.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for these tips. And yes, I think it's nice, even, you know, being able to see each other here. Sometimes you communicate so much more than just words. There is a whole body and, you know, physique that kind of comes with it, how we express ourselves. So interesting to hear that. And Carla, I'm going to turn to you last before we kind of, you know, wrap up a little bit our conversation. You know, from a municipal point of view, what advice would you give to states and regions? I know that we have a lot of states and regions here in the room today. You know, from a municipal point of view, what advice would you give to them when they are really trying to engage a municipality? What should they think about? What should they, pay attention to?
Well, thank you for that question. Actually, many times on a day-to-day basis on the public or municipal administration, we kind of lost focus, right? We're just trying to solve the most urgent things, and then we forget the most important ones. On a day-to-day basis, sometimes everything is so accelerated, so hectic between meetings, management reports, and then we kind of lose track of the important. When you turn around, the month is over, and you had the plan to do something. You were never able to start it because you were giving a priority to different other things. So I believe it's important not to lose sight of what's important, which are the goals that we have set out from the moment we started to work in the administration, and where is it we want to go. Because otherwise, when you think about it, your 3 years are over and you never did it. On the other side, it's also good to look for allies. Allies and the network, a support network, is huge important. Just in the same way you would need a family support work, it's important to have it in the public sector, because like Diana is explaining, it's very complicated to get them to hear you, especially because they normally have other priorities, and they don't see this as a priority. They see this as something fashionable, right? So in my case, we really work with the civil society. We work with international organizations, and these organizations, in my experience, say one organization you work with, and if you do very good work, then it's like they talk to one another, and then you can work with somebody else, and then the others want to develop their products with you as well, which is good. So I believe it's quite valid to keep on knocking different doors. If they say no at the first knock, you just keep knocking others, because maybe what you need is to take a couple of steps more, or maybe just knock on other doors to really see the full scenario. I guess that's what's important. Always, keep what's important on site, regardless of the urgent things, and keep on knocking doors.
Great. I think those are such great advices from both Carla and Diana, from both of you. And I think, it's this piece around don't lose sight of your goals and where you want to go. And, sometimes priorities might be different, but, if you are patient and you wait a little bit, maybe at some point they might align. And I like this piece of, being persistent. Just keep on knocking on the door, don't let yourself get down if nobody opens. Go to the next door, and looking for allies and really leveraging the relationships that are already there. I want to say a really huge thank you to Carla, Diana, and Valeria for joining us here today, for sharing so openly your experiences and your thoughts and insights. If we would be in person, I would say everybody please give a big round of applause. Maybe everybody who's on the video, you can give a bit of a clap. So thank you very much to the three of you. I really appreciated that you take the time and come and speak to us. Now, I would like to ask all of you just to take a minute to reflect on what you've heard. And you might need a pen and paper for that. If you have a pen and paper, take it out. And just start writing down the following sentence, and just keep your pen moving. Something will come, and some reflections will start to go onto the paper. So if you could start writing, and you can write in whatever language you want to write. You do not have to write in English, or just because I speak English. So I was surprised to hear. I was surprised to hear. And just keep on moving your pen, and I'll just give you a couple of minutes to write. I was surprised to hear. Great. Fantastic. Maybe finish your sentence, and you can take that little reflection. It's just for you, but you can take it into your breakout room discussion in a minute, to share maybe with the others, and explore a little bit more and hear from the others as well. Now, kind of with this little reflection and just a little bit of time to let the information, or this wealth of information settle, I wanted to move to the next part, which is where you get a little bit of a chance to talk to one another. So we'll be going into breakout room discussions in a minute. These breakout room discussions are really an opportunity to share your own experiences, some of your thoughts, maybe explore a bit what you've heard as well in this conversation from our three contributors, our three speakers just now. And it's the groups are organized by language. You will be in a group maybe with 4 to 5, maybe 6 other people. And you will have one facilitator from the climate group who is joining you just to help move the conversation on and to capture some notes that we can share afterwards with you. In the breakout rooms, I would like to ask you to introduce yourselves, just the name, where you're calling from, and to share a little bit, what did you hear in the speaker conversation that surprised you and why? And you can also bring in the reflection that you've just done, the reflection exercise. And then the second question is, what approaches of stakeholder engagement or coordination or relationship building have really worked well in your context? So share a little bit from your experience around this. You'll have the facilitator in your room to help you move on the conversation and capture some of the key points. And I think we're doing quite well with time. So I think you'll have, about 25 minutes in breakout rooms to have those conversations. La idioma. We're also going to have interpretation for this last bit. So please do select your language again, and you'll be able to hear your preferred language. Thank you so much. I hope you had a good conversation. I hope it was interesting and exciting and fruitful. And just as we're closing this peer forum, I wanted to ask you to put in the chat again, what are you taking away from this peer forum? What have you learned today? I've also just put the questions there that you can see them. Tell me a little bit what you are taking away from today. I can see this is where everybody goes down and types wildly onto their laptops and computers. And I need to be patient. What are you taking away? What have you learned today on engaging different stakeholders? Oh, I think by the time I haven't seen anything yet, so it seems like you've either learned a lot of things or you're taking a lot of things away. I'm curious. Feel free to write it in the chat. Okay, I can see the first ones are coming. So yeah, learning about just the different ways of working with stakeholders and how to strengthen committees, having leadership, working with different thematics group, and also taking into account multiculturalism, which I think is a very interesting point. And yeah, really nice to see how important it is and helpful it is to have these different thoughts and experiences across the different regions. Having successful project as proof pieces, yes. I can see that there was interesting to hear that there's commonalities in facing and dealing with the different challenges around climate change. So how to keep on knocking on the door. I think, Carla, you've created a good image there for everybody. How do we keep on knocking on doors, being patient, and trying that, having to maintain municipalities with GHG as well, inventories. Really interesting to hear, that the majority of states actually represented mentioned that they have experiences that have gone quite well. So it's nice to learn from positive examples and where it's working despite stakeholder engagement being difficult and tough at times. And interesting also, there's one takeaway, Lamin is saying that he's taking away that stakeholder mapping and inventory collection and linking that to their regional technical committee function. So great, would be interesting to hear how that works following up on you with you. That's really, I'm really glad to hear that, yeah, everybody's taking something away from this peer forum. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We do have a next peer forum coming up. It's taking place on the 13th of September. The exact time will be confirmed nearer the time. This peer forum is going to be around climate finance and how to mobilize different resources. So please join us again in September for this peer forum. It's one of the topics that I think was quite hot for many states as well. And if you do have any questions, please follow up with my colleague Farial, who's the project manager for the Climate Footprint Project, and who will be able to assist and help you. And I just wanted to point out that as we will close the peer forum, when you're going to leave, there will be a little form coming up that will ask you for feedback. Please do complete it for us, because we are also always learning and trying to learn how to work with this, what works, what doesn't work, how we can make it stronger. So please leave us some feedback so we can take that into account. And a final word, maybe to say goodbye. We can all come off mute, say goodbye in whatever language works for you. Give a big wave and a big smile to the camera. We're going to take a photo as well, so we can have it here together. Ciao, adios. Bye. Goodbye, everybody. Nice to see you.
Ciao.
Goodbye.
See you very soon in September. Oh, I love all these faces.
Bye-bye.
Yay.
Yes. Nice joining.
Thank you so much for joining.
Okay, bye-bye.
Have a great
Bye.
rest of the
Hago
day.
todos.
Yes.
Bye, and see you very
Con la
soon.
mayoría.
Luego, gracias.
Adiós.
Adiós.
Un gusto.
Gracias,
Adiós.
hasta luego.
Hasta la próxima. See you next time.
Gracias a todos.